see an ever-changing news and computer terminology. Commodore news. Are you keeping up with the Commodore? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up with the Commodore? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you.
Hello, and welcome to episode 188 of Zapped to the Past. I am Adrian Mills. I'm joined as always by Mr. Graham Raddings. If you haven't listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. Last week, we looked at our first batch of games from issue 76 of Zap 64, which we are in no way affiliated with, and were ponged by Pang, browned out by Mercs, and became the world's deadliest HMRC officer in Turbocharge. This week, we continue our look at the games in August 1991, along with what was lighting up our TV screens that month. Graham, this is a puzzling week, a sporty week, but is it a good week? Please tell us it is.
We're drifting through August 1991 now. The realisation that the summer holidays are coming to an end is leaving kids grumpy and adults overjoyed. So in a month that also saw the British radio show On the Hour debut on BBC Radio 4, and with it the first appearance of Alan Partridge, we go straight to C64 Puzzle HQ and take on the challenge of spinning receptacles and matching coloured marbles in the intriguing and bright Logical. And then we grab our oversized leather gloves, linseed oil our best wooden stick, and slowly walk from the dugout to the diamond as we pitch and bat like our lives depended on it in R.B.I. 2 Baseball. On the Hour. What a radio show that was. Without that, we wouldn't have such TV shows as The Day to Day, Brass Eye, and of course Alan Partridge. Co-creator Chris Morris is a true genius. Remember day-to-day news headlines like Big-faced child used a satellite dish, exploded cardinal preaches sermon from fish tank, and where now for the man raised by puffins? Amazing stuff. So while we wonder just how brilliant all of that really is, we head into the M game section and try and adapt to the idea that boring coloured tables of data can be made into anything exciting as we play a game that is guaranteed to lose you friends in multiplayer Soccer Manager, before finally heading to the outright odd world of another toe-to-toe fighting game, this time diving into caveman battles and all sorts in the noisy but troubled Millennium Warriors. A collection of boring, but there are spinnies and marbles in there, and so, well, there is that, I guess. Those are the games. God, I wish they weren't.
It's a week.
Yeah, it's been a week. Oh, some of these games, God, they're really getting stupid. The dregs, I feel like this is like the bottom of the barrel stuff. Well, nearly. I mean, goodness.
There's a couple here that are.
Did you expect the latter part of the C64 to be like this? I'm not sure I did. I'm not sure what I was ready for, but I'm not saying it's all bad, but it's just a bit.
No, it's a bit weird, isn't it? It's a bit all over the place. It's
got erratic. It's gone very erratic. I think it's just who's left, actually.
Yeah, and what they've managed to find sometimes down the back of the sofa.
Well, I was looking because 1991, unless we've seen it already, I think 1981 is when the game Lemmings came out on the Amiga.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, probably.
So it's just to pitch where the Amiga was at with its gate, where it's becoming, they're becoming games. So that's DMA Designs, wasn't it, Lemmings?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah,
so, and that was Psygnosis produced it, but it was DMA Designs. Yeah. But what I mean is, it's like that's where the Amiga was at. That level of the games are really ramping up. So I think what we're left is just nobody was making money on the C64 now. This is almost like we're almost in hobby corner.
Why would you rather be playing Lemmings, Graham, when you could be playing multiplayer Soccer Manager?
Yeah, true. I could think of a lot of reasons, and I will explain those reasons
when we get to that game. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, 2 sports games this week: a puzzle game and another one.
Well, 2 sports games-ish. But yeah, one of them is definitely of sport. The other one is definitely a sport. So I think that's... but you know what? We'll deal with that when we have to deal with it, won't we?
We will, yes. As ever, if you wish to support us on our ongoing quest to get through all these games that are reviewed in Zap, then you should do that by going to our Patreon. Patreon.com/Zapped to the Past. There's a great community. There's lots of talk today about Elite.
Yeah, I saw that. I put a stop to it immediately.
I was having none of it.
I put a firm statement.
You see no more You'll see no more posts from those people. Posting privileges were turned off.
Yeah, what
I
the
can
hell
tell
is
you
going
that.
on there? It's certainly sending to some kind of elite sympathisers club. I'm like, what are you on? Crack?
But yeah, they know who they are. They'll be listening to this. They know who they are.
They know exactly who
They
they
know
were.
who they are. Yeah.
I mean,
but
I
anyway,
don't quite know
so
what their game was really with it all, but
No.
there you go. There you go.
I think they like rubbing our face in wireframe nonsense
Well,
because we always
they
get
were all
mercenary
joining in.
stuff as well.
They were all joining in. My final statement on the matter to them in the Discord was best dreary space trading vector game of all time. And I stand by that.
Yeah, so it is. It is. Slave to Dizzo. Slave to the Dizzo.
It made me laugh because one of their and they are all amazing patrons and we have a good laugh with them. So I don't think we're not. But one of them said, there's another planets that are even closer together. I'm like, you're missing the point of the whole Slave to Dizzo thing, I think. It's boring to do that. Moving them closer together just makes it more immediate boring.
Yeah.
But I get it. Some people dig it. That's fine. Some people like to go mining, don't they? Some people like to go skydiving. Not me, though, but some people do, and that's all good. The world's full of an enriched society of people that like to do different stuff, and that's acceptable to everybody.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Holy shit.
Absolutely. And so, if you want to sign up to our Patreon and suffer our derision, then you can... then please do so. Patreon.com/Zapped to the past. It is pretty cheap. And you can do that. Or buy us a Ko-fi. Ko-fi.com/Zapped to the past. Buy some merch. Have a hat.
Yes. Go to zapthepast.shop and buy stuff. Stuff you can use. Real stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Tangible stuff. Not stuff made out of wireframes.
Exactly. The real tangible things. You can't drink out the cups, but you can't have everything.
There's no base to those cups. We call them tubes.
I'm doing a range of T-shirts at the moment, new ones, for exclusive ones that are based on the some of those lines. So I've got one that all the gadget lines from for your height only. So I've got a whole range of T-shirts soon that have all of those lines on. So there's some good ones there. A gang of gimmicks and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a mighty handy item. Is one of my favourite T-shirts I've ever designed. So.
That is good, yes. I also believe that is it this weekend that it's Zapped Live? I think some people are going.
This weekend, yes. Some people are going.
Actually, yeah, probably if you're not on the Patreon, by the time you've heard this, it'll already happened. I hope you had a good time. If you're on our Patreon, we hope you have a good time and you're going.
Yeah,
time
absolutely. Jeff Minter's there, isn't he?
Yeah, he's always there, I guess, isn't he?
He wasn't there when we went, was he? Was he there?
I think.
No, he was there because we hid from him, didn't we? Quite a lot.
Yeah, we hid. Yes.
There. No, but he's apparently. I think he's delivering I don't know if he's doing a talk or whatever. But
I think there's something in it based on there's that documentary on him coming out, isn't there? So I think it's something.
Oh, of course there is. Yeah. Get Minted, is it called? I would imagine it isn't. But...
I don't know. It's Minty. It's but it's been confused with the character from EastEnders.
If he shows up, I would like to have gone. It's a shame I simply can't attend through work commitments and so many other things. Yeah. It's just it literally couldn't have happened in the wrong month for me. But that said, good luck to everyone that's going. If Minty's going, go and ask him a question because he was always he was a catchy character on in the old thing.
This talk you've got going on, Minty's adventures with the C60 world of the C64. Is that spelt wrong? Is that Minters? No, Minty.
And imagine if somebody go, I don't know why I'm here. I never even played any games on the damn thing. I don't even know what this is all about. Talk to me about EastEnders.
Because of course I did.
Good old Minty.
Good old Minty. Our international listeners have no idea what we're talking about.
No.
I imagine some of our...
they probably never do.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, enough of that. Should we get into some games? It is what we're here for. It is what people tune in for. So we have 4 games this week. And let's get to the first one of those. And Graham, that is over to you to tell us, put on your best Spock ears and tell us all about Logical.
Yes, or as I like to call it, Log Cal, because that's what it looks like to me. Well, it's an exclamation mark, isn't it? It says Log Cal. Someone's shouting Log Cal. I don't know what that means. It's Logical, though. $9.99. So a full price from 1987, but weirdly not the full price from 1991, which seems to always be over £10. I don't know what that's about. Maybe VAT or something. The publisher here was Rainbow Arts, though. Rainbow Arts, Adrian. Ooh. Which means they're going to
deal when it's Rainbow Arts.
It is, but they've always got really hard to pronounce surnames, haven't they, in their teams? So in this one, the concept is Thomas Scholl. The producer is Ralph Stock. The coder is Thomas Brockage. That's the only game he's coded, or the only game that's listed on Lemon anyway. Graphics are Andreas Escher, of course. Now, he was famously drawing lots of things and loops, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was hard to sort of follow the things that were going around.
Remember, we said one time that he could never leave his own house because every time he goes down the stairs, he's back at the top again. It's like a nightmare. But he did Catechist graphics and Denaris, which is technically the same game, but okay. And the musician is Rudolf Stember. You remember him.
Remember Stember.
Remember the Stember. The 5th of September. Anyway, let's not mock a guy we don't know because, he might be a
I'm not mocking him.
giant.
I'm just saying a word that rhymes with his name.
That's mocking in wherever he's from. Anyway, in this game, Adrian, everything is about marbles of different colours. Now, I did handily find some instructions and then disappointed to see they were all in Chinese. So, because I don't understand Chinese.
Is your Mandarin not up to this?
No, and I want to just stress that I wasn't disappointed they were in Chinese. I was disappointed that they were in Chinese, as in I can't.
You couldn't read them.
A word. Yes, I couldn't read them. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea. I like the Chinese just like everyone else. In this game, everything is about different marble colours, actually, principally. But the basic idea is to place 4 marbles of the same colour in one rotatable four-hole receptacle. They could have come up with a better name, a spinner maybe, or a ball spinner. I don't know, but maybe the rotatable 4-hole receptacle seems a little bit. Anyway, while in the upper part, marbles of different colours, red, yellow, green, and blue, come into the game area. As soon as a receptacle is full, it explodes, and burned out receptacles are black in the marble slots. The receptacle is free again and can still be used. When every receptacle has been brought to explosion once, when it's been brought to climax at least once, the level is solved. Additionally, there is of course a time limit within which a marble is allowed to roll on the bar graph at the top. And as this is not enough, there are other mean things at the same time, sort of time limiting, solving a level, color stoppers, which only let through certain marbles of one color changes, that recolor marbles, directional arrows that work like one-way roads, lights that indicate which colors the receptacles have to be filled first, and so on and so forth. That was the basic instructions from the wiki, I think, that I found on this, or one of the many things. I couldn't actually find the real instructions, but that's kind of gives you the theme. So once again, really, we have ourselves a single screen arcade style puzzler. Okay. Mm. As stated, in this one, you need to channel the marbles to the spinners. I'm calling them spinners, Adrian, because I think that's what they are. But not the spinners that we know and well that sing about the family of man and all of that kind of thing. Not those spinners, no.
Not those spinners.
Not those spinners.
We're not contractually obliged with them.
No, we're not.
They can be quite litigious, perhaps.
We're not affiliated with the spinners in any way. Stay safe. No, I'm joking. So you need to channel the marbles to the spinners in sets of 4 to burn out those spinners. Like it said, if only it was that easy, though. Of course, there's challenges. Of course, there is. Wouldn't be a puzzle game if it was just that, would it?
Nope.
God, where have you been? From a good-looking loading screen and some decent music, we're fairly quickly into the odd-looking title area, really. Maybe it's meant to look like ice cubes. I don't know. But for a game about marbles and spinning, it was very angular and made of blocks. Anyway. Choose from the 4 options, sound, FX, password, or start game. Very simple, but again, simple is good. Handily, and a feature we always like, is the ability to complete screens or levels in this puzzler and get rewarded with the password for the next level. That's quite a nice thing in these sort of games. It's as it should be. That's the standard. Yes, it should be there. So at least you can dive in and come back or retry different screens and levels. It's up to you. I don't know. I'm calling them screens. They're calling them levels. You get the idea. Always a welcome touch, though, isn't it? That I think. I like to think.
Well, passwords. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Starting the game sees you presented with your game window. Across the top is your marble channel, which also doubles as your marble timer. But more on that in a minute. The marbles themselves are about a character in height and one of 4 colours, red, yellow, green, and blurple. Mixture of blue and purple, isn't it? Although that would be 5 colours, but it is just blurple. Also on the screen for most levels is the colour forecast or indicator of the next coloured marble. That's not on every level as you get further in, so that's where they ramp the difficulty up in one way. There's the marble display, which shows how many marbles are inside the channel system at the same time. And a note there, as soon as 4 marbles move, no other one can be shot out from a receptacle before one of the 4 marbles has been put into a receptacle. Make any sense of that? There is also your hourglass timer, which, if active on that level, means you're against the clock. And that is not the same as the marble timer, by the way. Also, you'll find the various receptacles or spinnies connected by these various little roadway channels. Each receptacle holds 4 of the marbles, and to burn it out, you need to get 4 of the same colour marbles in each 4 slots. Okay, straightforward stuff. And so it goes like this. A coloured marble appears in the channel at the top. It will drop into one of the first receptacle slots. or whichever you have available. You control the crosshairs with the joystick. Pressing fire on a receptacle or a spinny will spin it 90 degrees counterclockwise, revealing empty slots if you have any for the marbles to drop into. Move the marbles around, so you can to move the marbles around, you can press fire in the direction you want it to go, and that will then go through the channel into one of the other open slots in one of the other spinnies, depending on how many you've got to destroy. To move the marbles around, you can press fire in the direction you want it to go on the joystick. If you have a channel leading to another receptacle, it will travel there if you do that. Also, you can move the marbles from... so you must move the marbles from the top channel into receptacles. Failure to do this will cause a marble timeout. And you can see a grey bar at the top that fills up as you dilly-dally around. Once you have marbles in your receptacles, you must try and navigate them around to get to the 4 of the same colour in each of the receptacles you have on the screen. And you can pass marbles between the receptacles if they're next to each other as well. So this is a pass the marble game, really. Move the marbles around, try and navigate them around the space in order to fill up the receptacles, to blow them up. And eventually you'll do that. It takes a little while, but the level will clear and onward you go. You get your password and onward you go. And then the next one has more spinnies and more things. The early levels are fairly simple in that you just have to manage the movement of the marbles around and fill up the receptacles. It's much more about just in those early ones trying to get used to the controls. And you will find it a little bit faffy sometimes because sometimes your instincts are actually to press fire and move the joystick left or right to rotate the spinny. I don't know why. It just feels more natural to do that as opposed to just pressing the fire button to rotate them. Once you get used to that control, you'll get used to it. And it gets pretty challenging pretty quickly as well. So you go from, I think, 4 spinnies on the first level, I think, to about 6 or 7 on the next level. And so it goes on. More receptacles, less channels or less direct routes. And then, of course, the game ramps up with more hazards. Now, there's quite a few hazards, actually, more so that was listed in the little blurb. For example, you've got... let's have a look. Where's my list of them? So you've got color changes that changes the color of the marbles as they roll underneath them, which is kind of annoying. You've got color stoppers that only allow certain marbles of certain color to go through. You've got directional arrows, which means that they direct marbles in a specific, like one-way streets type idea. Teleports that move between obviously different vertical areas of the screen. You've got different lights that determine the order of the colors that the receptacles have to be filled in. There's even a color handicap, which means that you can sort of, there's like a Royal League of stuff that appears later on, which shows the receptacles don't have to be filled with 4 marbles of the same colour, but the combinations that are shown in the element. So you have to fill them with the right colours. So not just all the same. That's quite tricky, that, if you get to that point.
Yep.
So that's the kind of how they've ramped up the difficulty. But these all principally operate on one single screen, but they do get complicated pretty quick. And that's all, to the betterment of the game, I suppose, if that's what you want to do. It's hard to say this has the panic-inducing endorphin rush of a Tetris, really. But some of the colour changing, stacking order levels are really, really hard. And so prepare to be bamboozled by them a little bit. And visually, there's on those later screens, it gets very busy, which I think, I never got that far into it, I'll be honest, but I imagine it gets really busy and probably a little bit harder to read the busier it gets. But the music and sound effects are pretty good throughout the game. The sound effects are more sparse and a bit bloopy, but they're okay for what they are. But the music's pretty good. Although it is good, but forgettable. So it's got that curse of being a C64 tune where you hear it and you think, that's all right. And then you can't ever remember what it sounded like 2 seconds later.
Oh, no. Yeah.
The graphics in the game are okay for what they are. Very C64, but you quickly read the lay of the land. They have that unmistakable C64 medium res quality, but there is some shading in there, and there's a lot going on in many respects, and nothing glitches out or bugs. But I think the color choice is a little bit odd with light blue and white, and it just makes it a little bit. I won't say it's hard on the eye. It's just not overly pleasant on the eye.
It's a bit bright, isn't it? I can imagine the CRTs were humming at this one.
Yeah, and I think it might have suited a darker palette, actually.
I think so. Your background those blocks that you're not using could have been.
Yeah, could have been not there. For me, it would have just been nice to see channels and just a bit of, could have been something just slightly in the background. We've seen sometimes these kind of games have that kind of scrolling sort of effect in the background, and that might have lent itself to some depth here a little bit. But either way, it just doesn't have that. But the graphics are okay, and there is a lot going on. And you can at least see what the receptacles are. You get the lay of the land pretty quick. The channels and the various items, it's easy enough to read where they are and what they're doing. But I think the other elements of the UI, as much as I like the fact that there isn't a UI in this, because the UI elements are kind of embedded into the logic of the game, which is actually quite a clever thing to do. It's quite a nice idea.
Yeah.
But it also leaves them at the mercy of lots of little bits all over the place. And sometimes the reason that UIs work in the way they do, to have them in a familiar location, is because that means UI knows where to look for that information quickly. And then it's not something that's necessarily part of the game space. It works here, because some of these UI objects disappear later in the levels, but I don't know. I suppose it leaves most of the game logic to what's on the screen. I think it's a nice touch. I'm just not sure that it's a necessary touch, really. But there you go. It is there. As with all these sort of puzzle games, I think your mileage, your personal mileage will vary on whether you get into this or whether you find it repetitive. I like what I played, but I never felt the pull and compulsion to push it too far, to push it further. And I'm not 100% sure why. I think maybe it was something to do with the look and feel, or maybe it's just the vibe it gives. It's a good puzzler, but it lacks dynamism that these kind of games need. More clunks and clonks, just a bit more movement kineticism, more player feedback. You feel a bit more like a passenger in here. It's all a bit passive and it lacks the pushing and drive that might compel you on, for me anyway. But at least you get passwords for level completion and means you can at least progress in stages at your own pace. It did remind me of another puzzle we played where we were spinning things. I can't remember the name of it though. And I maintain this is a good game with much to like. I just didn't find it very compelling with this version. But I did notice that it came out on a whole bunch of other stuff, including DOS, Amiga, Atari ST, CD-TV, PC-98 and the Game Boy Color. Now, I can really see this working on a mobile or a handheld type console. And I think it would be more natural. It would be a more natural home for something like this. It's not a bad old game, all said and done. I just think it doesn't have the urgency or the agency of a Tetris to make you feel really compelled to really want to go further and get really far in it. It doesn't induce kind of panic. There's a weird calm about, even when the timing clock's running out, it's kind of like, oh, well, not every level even has a timer. And I think without a compulsion, you're relying on the puzzle logic and someone's desire to just need to solve that puzzle. And I don't know how far you're going to get with that with everybody, but it's not terrible, this. It got 86%. I would say maybe a shade high for what it is, but I didn't hate it. I think it's fair to say. And at least it's something a bit different on the C64. So that was my thought on it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm into it maybe a little bit more. I thought this is another good single screen puzzler. 99 levels to go, ain't there? That's quite a lot. It's going to keep you going for quite a while.
Terrible. It's not a terrible game. Yeah. It's just not very compelling.
Yeah, I mean, I think I found it quite addictive. Was playing it for all decent puzzlers. Once I got my head around what to do, because I just went straight in and I was like, what am I doing? And so I was like popping. I was just thinking it, and then I noticed that ones were blowing up when I was getting 4 colours, and I was like, and then when I got all of them, they disappeared. I was like, oh, that's what you got to do. Fine, that's really easy to understand. But and I quite like that. I didn't have to resort to the instructions or anything. I just played it, and it revealed itself in just through the play itself. So that was quite nice, and it was pretty nice and simple to start off with. But then it gets more difficult as it goes on, as you'd expect. Like we've seen in games like Atomino, loads of them, haven't we? It seems to be a lot of these single screen puzzlers of late. Whether it's Pipe Mania, I'm trying Atomics. There's loads of them, isn't there? There's just loads of them. But it's easy. I thought it's easy to read. I get what you're saying. It is a bit bright. Looking at some of the screenshots for other systems, the backgrounds are brown. It kind of look a bit weird on the ST ones. Anyway, just looking at some screenshots for that, and it's brown. I'm not sure if that would have worked on the C64. I wouldn't have liked to have seen a screen of brown.
Not again.
Not again, no, on the C64. So maybe there's like you said, to make it look like ice or something. But I think, CRTs would have been like at this one because it's very bright. But I got used to. I know what you said about the controls as well. I did find myself sometimes pressing fire when I wanted to press fire and fling something in a direction, and was twisting, moving them. I was like, oh, god damn it! But it's quite quick to move stuff around and get it back into position as to where you want it to. But the visuals are all right. The music's nice. I think you're bang on. It's a good tune as you're playing. You won't remember it though, but that's not a bad thing. At least it didn't annoy you while playing. I think that's quite important. And for me, the game that this most called to mind wasn't a computer game. It's Downfall.
Yeah, I guess.
Where you're twisting things to drop into, move into other things. You've got slots on a sort of circular thing, which you're moving stuff around, and you're moving coloured stuff around. There's elements of that, of the old Downfall, the old sort of classic sort of 2-player board game thing, which I thought this was similar to in kind of trying to move stuff around. I enjoyed this. I might go back to it. I think code for each of the 99 levels is always a good thing, like you said. I think it's another good entry into the puzzle games on the C64. It's up there. It's not top tier. But it's not far off them, and I think this is a good. I think 86% is about fair and about right. I think one thing I would say is that with only one mode, you kind of that's it, isn't it? I think it maybe could have sort of like thought about what other kind of mode can we do with this? Yeah, is there something else that we can do rather than just here's 99 screens? How about it? So like Like we saw in Atomino, where there was a couple of different modes. There's solve the puzzles or just keep going and make as many as you can, different kinds of things. I would have liked to maybe seen and thought that they could have maybe stretched this and just thought, right, what else can we do to sort of challenge the player? Do we give them random ones? Do we give them like a challenge mode and stuff and things like that? There could have been things like that along there. Seeing as everyone loads in separately, I mean, that might have been tricky on tape, I guess, but, you put that sort of thing in the disc version, don't you? But there you go. Logical. Yeah, it's pretty logical, I guess. It's all right. It's not bad. It's not bad at all.
No, I said it's a compelling enough experience for the people that really dig puzzles, but it's just not, I didn't feel like, with Tetris, at least with Tetris, you feel like you want to just get further. I think it's because it slightly speeds up and there's a bit more panic inducing. This is just a bit ploddy. It just plods along. And that's the puzzle part of it, I guess. But and thank God maybe, because I think under a timer it would be insanely difficult. But I don't know. I just think it needed something like that to just drive it on a bit more.
I get what you're saying. It did seem quite sort of laid back and just get some balls in holes. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get it. There we go. That's logical. That's our first game this week. It ain't bad, but it's all right. Let's move on to our second game of the week. And that game is R.B.I. 2 Baseball.
It is.
R.B.I. 2. It's the Pirates baseball game. Now, if you want to play 8-bit baseball, then this right here, this is the game for you, because that's exactly what this is. R.B.I. 2 Baseball is a sequel to the original NES game, R.B.I. Baseball. That came out in 1986, then went out, and I think it was a bit of a hit because then it was ported out to the arcade in 1988. So it became an arcade game. The original game was published and developed by Namco for the NES, but I think it was because then Nintendo and Tengen got involved to release the arcade version, or probably Atari. I don't know. Just going by the sort of credits on Moby Games, and they did that, and that leads us to this version, the sequel, and that came out for quite a few more systems, but it didn't come out in the arcade that I could see. So an odd lineage here. It was released, though, on the Amiga, Amstrad, Atari ST, C64, DOS, NES, and the Spectrum.
Ooh.
Credits for the release over here in the UK were that it was published by Domark. That's it. But it was developed and is copyright Atari Games and Tengen in the US. So this was in-house in the US. It's a baseball game, and I think it just got released over here by Domark, and you probably bought the licensing rights. But whoever made it, I have no idea. According to the instructions, though, R.B.I. Baseball simulates real baseball. Most of the rules and strategies of the real game apply. You must pitch, bat, run, and substitute players well to achieve success. There are 3 ways in which the fielding side can put out a batter or a runner. 1, by causing the batter to fail to hit the ball with 3 strikes. The catcher must catch these balls. 2, by catching the ball hit by the batter before it bounces. 3, by a fielder touching a runner with the ball before he gets to a base. Any 3 of these put out the batting side. That's it. That's baseball.
Okay.
That's baseball for you.
That's baseball.
So it's baseball then. And it's quite an odd game. It's got a very console style to it. It feels like a NES game. We'll come to more about a little bit later. But when the game loads up, we get some credits and copyright notices. Then we get an image of a batter and a pitcher. And then like a slow parade in pairs of little players of the teams of the Tengen League, or Tengen League, how we pronounce that. It's quite a nice intro, actually. It looks quite cute. It's very NES-like. It feels like a NES game in the way that it sort of presents itself. And pressing fire gets us to the options of the game. And we've got a few options. You can choose to play 1 player, 2 player. You can watch the CPU play itself. You can continue with the previous league. And this option is a bit hidden, actually. As to how you actually sort of get this, because there's no option. You can't sort of see where's the league option. There isn't. And finally, you can change the options. You can choose to make the CPU easy or hard, which in my opinion made very little difference. And there's some other bits and bobs you can change as well, turn the sound off and on and things like that. It's quiet though. There's no music. I think this misses some music.
Yeah, it does a bit.
It's a bit quiet. So it just needed a little bit more oomph here. A bit of a nice bit of music could have been playing. I don't know. There's always a thing with American games, isn't there? Games developed in America sort of thing. They don't seem to have the European musical side down.
They don't have a lot of that, do they?
No. And if they do have music, it's very, very of a type. There's I don't know what it is, but anyway. If you select 1 player, There's a bit more loading before we get to choose your team. From the 2 types of league, I don't know if this is correct for the States. I don't know. I don't know a lot about baseball and how it is, the different leagues in America. But you get the American and the national. So you get the American East and West leagues and the national East and West leagues. What the difference is, I guess it's like the AFL and NFL in American football, whatever.
Like that, I think.
So there's loads of teams to choose from. They're all denoted by 2 letters though. So I was a little bit left guessing. I was like, I think that's LA. West Coast says LA. That's probably going to be LA, but who's SA? Like, is that Seattle? I don't know. There's loads of different. I was like, okay, we'll just pick one. But I guess if you know baseball, you'll probably know the 2-letter denotation or demarcations, whatever. Then you select the CPU, who you're going to play against, and there's more loading. After more loading, you get to pick your pitcher out of usually you've got a choice of 4. It tells you whether they're left or right. You can see some stats for them as well. And then there's your initial batter, stats for them as well, which you can reveal by moving the joystick right or left here to flick through their stats. So you can see how good they are, which is quite nice. And there's just a lot of numbers. So it just says Jenkins, and you move it to the right and it says 258. I'm like, is that good? And then he moves to another one and it says Smith 271. Well, that's higher, so I'm guessing that's better. This is where my lack of baseball. I know how to play baseball. I know the rules, but I have a complete no knowledge of that. The background stats and stuff and what things mean. They do like their stats and numbers in American sports, American football, baseball, basketball. They love them, and I just don't get them. Because once you've done that, you get a scoreboard that is replete with numbers and letters, all the numbers and letters crammed into this. It's almost incomprehensible. I was looking at the scoreboard going, what does all that mean? I know there's 9 innings. I know there's some scores and you batters, and I get it, but I found the scoreboard a bit hard to read. And then you finally get to the game. Okay, so the meat and 2 potatoes of the baseball game. So the view of the game is actually split into 3 panels in quite a clever view, actually. It's quite interesting the way they've sort of done this. So the central panel, it's like a 3D view of the pitch. So you're looking from behind the batter and the catcher. And the central panel shows us your batter at the bottom of this kind of 3D view. And then sort of into the screen, a little bit higher up, there's the pitcher, obviously smaller because it's in 3D. And behind them, you can see second base. So that's quite interesting. It gives you all the information you kind of need at this point.
Yeah.
And it works pretty well. Sprites are nicely drawn and animated. This looks quite good. The right and left panels, they kind of sort of set off slightly and they're sort of zoomed out. So they're not kind of joined, but what they do is they show you the first and third base sort of respectively. So there's on the right panel, you've got first base, on the left panel, you've got third base. And so if you've got runners at them and you want to try and steal stuff, you can see them. Okay. It gives you that view. Yeah. So so you got close up through the middle and a kind of more distant view on the left and right. It's quite a nice idea. It's those 3 different views. You don't see that very often, especially sort of vertical splits on the C64, because I understand that's more tricky to do than horizontal.
More timing sensitive, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So because the way the raster bar runs something left to right,
well, it does go left to right, top to bottom. So
so splitting that in 3 ways vertically, I think is tricky. That's why you don't see it a lot, I guess, from what I've read. But you know more than I do.
There's probably tricks to where they've done that, but yeah, it's not as straightforward. That's for sure.
Yeah. So if you're batting. At this point, you control the batter. You've got like a little square that your batter is in, and you can move your batter around the batting area in that square. You move where you want, left, right, up, down. And essentially, when you get the balls, you get the ball flung at you, pitched at you, you press fire to swing the bat. If you do a tap, then it does a bunt. And so, for those who don't know, a bunt is a little, you just sort of stop it and try and run.
It's a little what?
It's a little, so you don't try, it's not a big swing.
No, you don't actually. You just tap the ball. It's a running trick, isn't it? So
so you just tap it and then leg it.
It's a little ruse.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can try and run. So you're not going for a big home run. You're just trying to sort of get people from base to base. It's trying to psych out. There's a lot of psychology in baseball and things like that. If you hold the fire button and you do a full swing, okay. Timing is everything, of course, because you need to time your swing when the ball is coming. And it says in the instructions as well, you can also try to steal bases. But the instructions I had was saying, like, press the second fire button. I was like, oh, what? I don't think this is for the C64. So it's a bit hard to try and get, but it says you can steal them with up, down, left, and right and fire. but when I was doing that, it was, I don't know, couldn't never manage it. I don't know. So whatever you do, if you're pitching, then fire, pitches the ball. And as you're pressing the fire button, you can move up, which does a slow ball. You can move down, which does a fast ball. You can do left, which does a left curve ball, or right, which does a right curve ball. You can also move the pitcher around the pitching mound as well. So you can sort of go off to the right and then curve it into the left. And if you just press fire, it just does a normal pitch. Because remember, you want to, if it is a pitcher, you want to put the ball through the center of the pitch. If it goes out of the sort of central channel and the batter doesn't swing, it's called a ball. If you do 3 balls, then the batter everybody gets an immediate run to the next base. So you want to be careful of that. You want to trick the batter into swinging it, especially if you're going to go really wide and they'll never hit it. You trick them. That's the whole point of this kind of thing. So if you throw the ball and the batter swings and misses, it's a strike. If they, if they don't swing, as like I said, the ball is wide, it's a ball. If they get 3 strikes, they're out. As we said at the beginning, it's baseball. If they hit it though, then the view switches to a wider view of the pitch that scrolls around depending on where the ball's going. And the ball goes sailing away, depending on how hard you hit it, how far you hit it, what angle, all that kind of stuff, and it goes flying away. And if you're in defense, then you control the nearest fielder to where the ball is going, and you've got to try and run after it. You might try and catch it if it's coming straight to you. Catching's easy, you just got to be there. It automatically catches it, nothing too hard. You can also dive for the ball and jump for it if it's going above you by pressing the fire to try and catch it. And if you don't, then obviously you're down, and you've then got to go and retrieve the ball from wherever it is. And once you've retrieved it, you can throw it back to any base by pressing the appropriate direction and pressing fire. So down for first, right for second, up for third, and left for third base. You know what I mean? Up, down, left, right. Once this is done, we're back to the pitching until 3 batters are out, and we switch around, and it's baseball. So it plays this game of baseball. It's pretty good, Now the league option is in there, and my understanding is that it allows you to play every team in the league. And that's where the continue option comes in, as after each game you get a code to enter to continue, I think, which is a nice touch. And that has gives this game a bit of hidden depth, because you can have a league going on. So that's quite cool. We've not really seen that in many baseball games. I think there was one, maybe, one of the weird ones, but I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. So from a visual standpoint, I thought this was quite nice. It's arcadey and NES-like, and feels, like I said, very much like a NES game. The main sprites, they're well drawn and animated for the most part, in the sort of opening, pitching and smacking a ball sort of thing. And I managed to, at one point, hit a home run. They said I hit one for 385 yards. Miles. I know, miles. I know. I was like, woohoo! And I was like, da-da-da.
That is a good whack, that.
When it does that, you get loads of fireworks, little fireworks and stuff going off in the sky, which is quite a nice touch. When you're in the outfield view, the sprites are the little sort of, single sprite high, but they're decent enough. They're basic, a couple of frames of animations, they're running around, but they're running the right directions, they're all fine. There's some nice touches though. I like the officials down at the bottom calling you safe or out. If you're trying to steal a base. So there's little animated, sort of little arcadey little elements like that, popping up in this, which is quite cool. Diving and catching the ball is also satisfying. Controls for this, very easy to pick up. There's nothing particularly hard about this to play. It's very arcadey. It feels very arcadey, and it just plays nice and smoothly. The sound is a real letdown though. There's no music throughout, and the spot effects are quite annoying. And they just don't sound right, and they could and should have been better. We say this about a lot of the American games, but they could have, should have. It's just a bit of a letdown, really. There's just a bit of an afterthought, and the C64 can do better. It can do better than this. As I said earlier, I saw no difference between setting the CPU to easy or hard, because it just always smacked my pitches all over the place, no matter what I was doing.
Smack your pitch up, yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. Or let them go if they was going wide or anything like that. I never managed to, I barely ever managed to fool it or anything like that. So it just battered me. They just walloped me all over the shop, and just, I was like, oh, this is no fun. But I imagine in 2 players, with 2 players, it would be mitigated somewhat, because you're playing against someone else, and that could be a bit of a laugh. But to me, it made the prospect of a full-on league quite daunting, even on easy. I'd be like, oh god, I'm just going to get hammered every week. This is no fun. But if you're into baseball, as we've said about quite a few of these these types of games, if you are into the sport, then you would probably dig this, because this is a good variation that we've seen, good version of baseball. It's well presented, loads of teams and league options, which is nice. It looks okay, looks pretty good. It plays well, it's fast. Like I said, it's got a nice mix of arcade immediacy with some decent depth and strategy to back it up. Then there's probably more going on with changing players and substituting out than I know, because I don't know baseball. But if you do, then this is quite a good early version of a baseball game. I think that's the problem. You'd probably need to be into baseball to get this. Because for me, I would rather play hardball, because it looks better. It's quicker. It doesn't feel quite as, it just feels easy to play. And I like hardball better. It's got some sound effects that are not so horrible. And, it just looks way better than this. Whereas I think this probably plays a better game of baseball. I'm not a baseball fan, so for me, I prefer hardball. But you take it as you take it as you find it. It's a decent port though, from wherever this has started from, and another solid addition to the baseball games on the system. The R.B.I. series is still going today. I'm not sure if it's the same lineage. They've got the same name, or whether R.B.I. is just the royal, whether that's actually the official name for baseball, whatever it is. But R.B.I. games still release on PlayStation and Xbox. There's one every year. So that these games are still going. So I guess it's good to see these things of some history on the C64, the part of that lineage. It's not totally for me, this, but it's a solid game nonetheless. It's a pretty good baseball game. I just prefer hardball. But if you are probably into baseball, you're going to probably prefer this, I think. What did you think?
I'm not going to disagree with everything you've said there, to be honest. I thought it had a nice idea and view. It was just a little bit basic. And hardball's better, I think. It's just a better graphic experience. And I think that's needed, really, at this point. This felt like a game that was released in about 1986 in all of its sort of appearance. But it's playable, and it plays a good game of baseball. Does it need the woo when you hit the ball? I'm not so sure it needs those kind of things.
Yeah.
And also, it's mission impossible pitch, isn't it? This, because the pitches that they have against you, it's swinging and hitting the ball. It's a bit hit and miss, whether you hit it or not. But you'll get used to that. I like the way it split the screen into 3 for the gameplay. I thought that was quite a nice idea. And overall, it plays pretty good. At least you can get into it and get on with it. It's just a bit basic for 91. And it isn't as good as other games of this type. Hardball kind of probably is really where it's at, isn't it? But it was playable. It just suffered from those few weird little issues, as you really said. Nothing major. It felt a bit dated. I think what I would really say is that this is just very late to that party. And I think baseball games have kind of been and gone, and everyone's done with them. And the winner of that dust-up was settled long ago. So it's a late entry, but it is a curio, isn't it, that it's got such lineage. And it is fundamentally quite the playable little game, all said and done. So I quite liked it, because I could get on and play it. I just wasn't very good at it, and it was a bit crappy in terms of graphics and stuff. But there you go. That's what I thought.
No, fair enough. Yeah, I think we're in agreement there. It's just like, I think there's hidden depth. We just don't see it because we're not into baseball.
Maybe, and it presented all of that stuff well. I'll give it that. There's nothing terrible about it. It just looks a bit old-fashioned in sort of game world. Really.
Yeah. It feels like a NES game. It really did. I think that was it.
Yeah, probably. I've never played a lot of NES games, but I imagine that's what they were like.
Yeah. There we go. That's our first 2 games for this week: Logical and R.B.I. 2 Baseball.
Right.
They're both all right. It's not a terrible start. They're both all right.
Not the worst ever. Yeah, they're not the worst ever.
They're both all right. So it's always good to have all right sometimes. A bit of mediocre does you the world good. Yeah. So there we go. Right, we're going to go take a break. We'll come back. We'll see what's going on in TV land in the UK in August 1991. So please do stay with us. All right. What was going on in TV? What was happening? Well, 14th of August, Graham, the BBC One aired Mozart in London, the first of a 3-part series marking the bicentenary of his death, in which his earliest pieces are performed by children of about the same age as he was when he wrote them. It's the first time this has been done on British television. Yeah,
I found it's actually on, I think it's on iPlayer, actually. You can go and find it on there, the whole thing. Found a couple of clips and bits and bobs. Mozart is a fascinating subject. That this whole idea of Mozart, whether you're the more of the Amadeus type, was he mercilessly slain by the evil Machiavellian, what's his name? Salieri and all that. Oh, but the whole idea of Mozart and his whole life, the way he was brought up, the legacy of that is absolutely astonishing. It's astonishing. I found a whole bunch of facts about Mozart, the least of which is that one of the things I found, which isn't necessarily, it was in a video clip I found, was that the methodology for teaching Mozart violin, and Mozart was taught violin by his father, who was a very dominant person in Mozart's life. And he's also, remember, his sister and his mum were also really talented musicians, especially his sister. His sister was just as good as, if not better in some ways, than Mozart.
Oh, really?
But of the time, of course, she went off to do different things. But they were both being shown off like performing children were from a very young age by their father, Leopold, I think his name was. Anyway, long story short, the methodology that was used to teach violin and the way you stroke and approach a violin in terms of playing it with a bow that he was taught by his father is the same method they still use to this day. That's how effective it is.
Wow. Okay.
And so,
how do they? What is there something special about it? I don't know. I've never been taught violin.
It's a particular methodology, and it would probably nowadays considered quite a harsh way of dealing with it because it's a no prisoners approach to learning the violin. You have to practice. You got to do this. There's this method. You got to get them. No, you can't accept mediocrity. You've got to, and it's just a kind of a methodology. But some of the methodology is still what's used by violin teachers to this day because it's so effective.
Right.
Because some instruments are obviously more challenging to learn than others, and the violin is one of them. And of course, Mozart was a virtuoso violinist at a very young age, to say the least. I think it was 5 when he could play fully with the violin, or 5 or 6.
I could play the spoons.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could play much of anything at that age. I could
play I Spy.
Exactly. But I found some incredible things and some achievements. His earliest opera was written when he was 11 years old.
That's not right. How can anyone write an opera at 11? That's crazy.
It's not just like a little opera as well. That's what would be classed as considered, that's a full, complete opera. He wrote that age 11. He could play the piano, violin, horn, flute, harp, bassoon, oboe, clarinet, and trumpet. They were all instruments he could play to a virtuoso level.
What, at the same time?
You'd be surprised how he could play the trumpet. But apparently he hated the trumpet. But you know why. Yeah. But no, not at the same time, obviously. But no. However, he heard complete music in his head. So when he wrote down his music, he didn't actually apply any corrections to it on his notes. He just wrote it. So it's like he printed music from his brain straight to the page. So when they found a lot of Mozart's handwritten notation, it's all note perfect and correct. There's no corrections on it at all, none. So he just wrote that because it was complete in his head. So he was just transcribing it from what was in his head complete, and he could hear it in his head fully complete. So when he looked at the music on the page, he heard it.
Wow,
it's mad, isn't it?
Yep.
So he wrote 22 operas in the course of his life. They range from youthful things like La Fina Simplis to more mature masterpieces like The Marriage of Figaro, Don Giovanni. You ever seen an opera, Mozart opera before? They're quite amazing to see, especially the Magic Flute. And if you never do anything in your life and you're not a fan of opera, I think the key thing to think of is that operas like The Magic Flute by Mozart are not composed for royal families and for the glitterati. They are composed for the people, and they are very much about the people. So they deal with the kind of the less, he called them lofty. He didn't like the idea of lofty gods and things like that and myths. He liked fun and silly stuff. But he composed over 600 musical works throughout his lifetime, including operas, concertos, symphonies, and chamber music. While the Kochel catalogue initially attributed 626 works to him, musical scholarship has since identified some spurious compositions and discovered additional works, potentially bringing the total number to around 650 to 725. Now, these aren't just little tunes. These are full-on concertos and stuff.
What's chamber music?
Music that gets played in chambers.
What, the pub?
Yeah, exactly, the pub in Grimsby. Mozart was exclusively composing for that 500 years before it was even a thing. That's how talented he was. He knew there'd be a pub there in the future. I tell you, honestly, it's like a Terminator.
Well, it's a Shakespeare.
Now, the sad thing is, right, he died on November the 5th, 1791, at age 35.
He wrote all that before he was 35. Good Lord.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he composed his first proper piece of music at about the age of 4.
Oh, I've wasted my life.
Yeah, but obviously, he was a virtuoso and a savant, obviously, and And I think that the tragedy is that he was never, he famously died a pauper. He was buried in a pauper's grave, and now it's not so much the case. Obviously, they've got all sorts of statues and memorials and things, as rightly they should. But the fact is, he was kind of a rock star. He's considered a kind of a rock star of the day. He was very off the wall. I imagine he was probably, nowadays, you would probably say he was neurodivergent in some way. I don't doubt.
Yeah, probably.
But just a celebration a mini celebration of Mozart. Mozart was one of my favorite composers of classical music, along with Bach and a couple of others. But Mozart is up there and that's just because you can't help but think, you listen to some music and you think that's credible, and you realise that was written when he was 12, and you're like, oh, what was I doing when I was 12? I
was eating worms.
Exactly. No, I couldn't have. I was badly playing a recorder, I think, let alone composing operas. No. But you know what? We just weren't. We weren't, as a family, we weren't that musical. But there you go.
No.
That's just. I thought this. I'll put the links to some facts and figures of Mozart. If you're interested, you're interested. But that was quite amazing to see children of the same age performing Mozart when he was at that age. Because of course we still have savant children who are amazingly musically talented. I mean, you when you watch that piano TV show and you happen to be at King's Cross or one of the places where they've got random pianos that seem to have just appeared out from nowhere, and you walk past and you hear this amazing piece being played, and you look around and you're like, oh, it's like a toddler. You're like, oh, for God's sake, his fingers can't barely even bloody reach the piano keys, let alone the pedals.
Yeah, true. It'd probably turn up on Britain's Got Talent these days.
Yeah, probably, because they do seem to
get
get younger.
Who's this?
Don't they?
And Simon Cowell would do his pretends to be shocked face.
He can't be, can he? His face is frozen in time and space. Do you know, on the most recent episode of that I watched, there was a man pulling a motorcycle with his eyelids. Now that's entertainment, that is.
I'm not sure I'd call that a talent.
Well, I'll tell you what, it made my eyes water watching him, because he hooked these things into his eyelids and pulled a motorbike. You couldn't do that.
I couldn't, but it's not a talent.
I think it is.
It's an ability. It's a very strong eyelids, but I don't call it a talent. That program's spurious. The title is
Having
spurious.
strong eyelids is a talent. He's trained those eyelids. I was saying to my partner when we were watching
how do you train eyelids?
Well, I was thinking, how did he discover that? Was there at some point he was like...
He can bench 200 kilograms with his eyelids.
At some point, Adrian, somebody was stuck in the mud on a motorbike, and instead of just getting a rope and pulling him out, he went, give us the chain, hooked it to his eyeballs, and then yanked it out. And they were like, wow. That was what a way to discover you could do that. That's brilliant.
What a talent.
He also headbutted a nail into a plank, and then pulled the nail out of the plank with his eyelids.
Again. You watch the best telly.
Honestly, this year's Britain's Got Talent is a bit, because they always have the same collections of acts and stuff, but this year it's gone a bit off the wall. There was a guy who span around on a chain thing hanging from the ceiling. I mean, he was an amazing gymnast, but he was just doing a lot of spinning and complicated spinning at that, hanging off his legs and his feet and all that. And then there was the old guy that could pull motorbikes with his... He had ant and deck on the motorbike as well, by the way. It wasn't just a motorbike. He pulled it on his eyes. Oh, my God. Afterwards, I'll tell you what, he unhooked his eyeballs from this chain thing that he had him in. And his left eye...
Stop saying eyeballs.
Yeah, so his eye... Well, it's all eyes. But when he unhooked his eyelids from this system he had of pulleys, his right eye did look a little bit weepy. I thought, he's hurt himself there.
Do his eyelids get flappy? Do they sort of just go blur? They sort of lose all elasticity.
It did look weird, but he also did sword swallowing as well. He swallowed a sword which had a flamethrower in the end. It was, I mean, the guy's talent knew no bounds. Well, that's what his act was. He was the guy that could pull motorcycles with his eyelids and a flamethrower sword.
Flamethrower swords.
Well, he had one. Let me tell you that.
He should be on the watch list.
It's uncomfortable to watch him swallowing that bloody thing. I tell you, it looks dangerous. Anyway, but there you go. Nothing to do with Mozart, but he was talented.
That's the difference in the talent of someone from the 1700s to somebody now. What we class as a talent is being able to pull motorcycles with your eyelids.
Yeah, he was from. I think the guy was from Vietnam as well. I seem to recall. So. Yeah.
He pulled his first bike when he was 4.
He might have, for all we know.
Who knows? Eyelids like that, you got to find out at some point, haven't you? I mean, I wonder how many people tried it, sort of thing, and just lost their eyelids.
Too many, though. But I'm either that or there's all these people in Vietnam who've got like 17-foot-long eyelids. That when they blink, it's like a whiplash sound when they blink. Like,
Oh, it's from Indiana Jones in of the eyelid.
Yang Fo's blinking again. Bloody hell. Put the washing out, he'll flap that dry in no time.
Or they're just coming off and they're just replete with eyelid soup.
Maybe that's how he catches fish. He just hooks his eyelids into the water and just pulls them back in.
I don't know. He probably uses his flamethrowing sword.
Come to think of it, there's a lot of uses for baggy eyelids now when I think about it. Way more than I thought.
Carry your shopping home.
Carry people in them.
You could flip them over your head and just put them into a tree and use them as a self hammock.
Yes, you could, I suppose. You might not find that so comfortable, but
it's this is so painful.
Why did I think of this?
On my eyelids.
I can't blink. I can't close my eyes to go to sleep anyway.
This is the worst idea ever.
Yes. Well, that happened as well.
You could turn them into your own mankini.
I don't think he'd want to do that, but you could.
No, the flappy eyelid ones. You just pull them both down, tuck them underneath, and tie them.
You wouldn't need both. You could just do one.
Absolutely, you could use them as your own braces for a pair of trousers that are a bit baggy.
Eyelid G-strings. My God, there's an album title. Wow.
It's already won by Ministry, I bet.
Bound to
be. Anyway, Mozart though, yeah.
Yeah, Mozart, hell of a guy. What a neat guy.
Creating a hammock though out of his own eyelids. So
exactly.
To him.
So how talented was he? Could he pull a motorcycle with his, or pull a horse and cart with his eyelids? No, he could not. No wonder he died a pauper.
No, he could not.
Bloody Mozart, rewriting history now.
Bat to him.
I used to like Mozart a lot, and then I discovered he couldn't pull carts with his eyelids, and now I'm not so sure.
No, I'm not either. All right, 23rd of August to the 1st of September was Eurosport aired the World Athletics Championship for the first time. The event is also shown on the BBC.
Yeah, I was ended watching bits of athletics and stuff. I don't know why. Yeah, it's all right. Some good events in there amongst that lot. Quite like watching the gymnasts and stuff like that when I was younger. Watching the pommel horses and all the people do the flip-flacks and all of that. It's quite impressive. Because I knew full well that was never going to be my destiny, mate. I'll tell you that for a fact. If I flick-flack, you hear a snap sound and people are going to get injured. And not just me.
I could see you as a gymnast.
No, you couldn't. No. I tried it once and it didn't go well for anybody.
No. Oh dear. Did you? I hope we didn't.
Only at school when we all had to try it. We all had to run and do that pommel horse jump thing, which everyone managed. I mean, it's not hard. You're jumping off a springboard, aren't you? So everyone managed it.
Yeah, true.
And climbing the ropes, of course. I could climb ropes.
26th of August, BBC Two airs a day of programmes paying tribute to the Lime Grove Studios, which closed the previous month and includes a remake of the 1950s soap opera The Grove Family, featuring stars from the present day.
Okay.
Lime Grove Studios.
The Watchdog was made there originally in that studio.
Yeah.
That's Life was made there.
That video you sort of linked to.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it, but when I looked at it, I was like, oh, that was made there. Oh, that was made there. Oh, The Late Show was made there.
Yeah. I mean, that video you've linked to has got a real student production vibe about it, though, hasn't it? It made me laugh. Reminded me of the one we made about Hebden Bridge, which Gary will remember. Lots of cuts and walking to camera to say something.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that sort of thing, but yeah.
No. Also, 26th of August, a repeat is shown of An Unearthly Child, the first ever episode of Doctor Who from 1963. Over to you on this one. More your kind of thing.
Well, it's the one that establishes lots of important facts about Doctor Who, actually. So it establishes the TARDIS. It establishes, why the TARDIS is a police box, of course. Establishes that. And that's because it breaks when it lands for the first time and it gets stuck as a police box in 1963. So that's what the police boxes look like then. And the TARDIS is designed to actually assume a shape of an object in the place where it lands. And so it fits in. It's like it's camouflage. So that's why it turns into a police box. And it's meant to do that. And if you actually look in other episodes of Doctor Who later, the Master's TARDIS still does actually change. So when you go to the Keeper of Traken, the Master's TARDIS is the shape of a pillar because it's changed to suit the environment it's in. That's what TARDIS is meant to do. But the Doctor's is broken. So that's why it stays as a police box forever.
Yes.
And that's quite nice. And of course, the Doctor himself, he's an odd Doctor, the first one. But there's a few things you realise when you watch it. The first episode's actually, obviously, it's introducing lots of stuff. It's very of its time. But and there's some really interesting sort of set the scene stuff. But what you have to look at is how revolutionary that program was in that time frame. There was nothing else really like that. That sort of serial idea of a serial about a mysterious time traveler, science fiction on TV at that time. It's unheard of. And the concepts and some of the stuff and the creativity that comes around. Yeah, they didn't have the budget to make it really fancy and okay, but what they did have, they actually leveraged pretty well. And some of the ideas in some of those early episodes are pretty good. They're all on the iPlayer, so you can go on, I think it's iPlayer, but either iPlayer or one of them, but you can go and watch them all out there. Now, what is truly, of course, iconic about Doctor Who is the music for Doctor Who. And there's an amazing video, a YouTube video, which I'll put in the show notes about how that theme was created. Of course, it's Delia Derbyshire, isn't it? I think her name is, or something like that, something Derbyshire. Anyway, but there's a really great interview with the people that made that music. Now, that music is put together by people recording little mini sounds and looping it all together on a connected tape. There are no instruments played, and it's not like it's like where someone sat with a synthesizer. That is literally them making sounds using technology to try and make them make weird sounds and weird noises, and then putting that onto a 2-track tape, literally splicing the tape together bit by bit by bit to make it into one continuous track. That was assembled on tape. And considering that is what it is, and that explanation on that Radiophonic Workshop video that I put in is just, it blows your mind that that's exactly how that was put together. That they sat there, thought that would be an interesting sound, recorded it, and then created all the loops and swooshes and all of that sound by manually editing tape with essentially a pair of scissors and glue. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. And of course, the music.
Crazy. It is crazy.
It's absolutely mad. And yet, that persists. That music is in. When I listened to it today, actually, and I've not listened to the original Doctor Who theme for quite some time. I actually watched the first episode as well, which was actually really fun. And the first Doctor, it was his name, William Hartnell, I think. So William Hartnell, the first Doctor, he looks a little bit confused, but I found a clip of compilation of his really funny bits, and he is quite a funny Doctor, actually. I've not watched a lot of the original Doctor Who series. I might make a point of correcting that. I've watched the odd episode that have sort of been directed to, but I wanted to listen to the theme in its original format, which you can do. I'll put the link to it on the show notes. And it is just ace. And I can't imagine being a kid in 1963 and hearing that coming out of your TV. That with all those fancy noises, that do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. It's just dead exciting to hear that. It's just I'm trying to put my head into that space, thinking we were been totally spoilt by it, really, from being children of the 70s, 80s. We just, it's so familiar to us. But to hear that for the first time must have been something amazing. Can you imagine how excited you would have been after you'd seen that first one when you hear that? I'd have been like, wow, this is so cool. It is an amazing thing, isn't it? So Doctor Who, it's the stupid it got in places. Those early episodes and the pioneering stuff done by those people just blows my mind. So cool. So definitely watch that Creating the Theme link. I'll put it in the show notes. It's so cool. So cool.
Yeah, I watched it today after you'd linked to it, and it's pretty impressive. Sort of thing. That nothing's played and it's all just tape stuck together, which just blew my mind. I was like, good Lord, that's crazy. Crazy impressive.
You're going to do it like that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. 29th of August, Top of the Pops is Simulcast, Graham. Simulcast on BBC Radio 1 for the last time. Episode presented by Jackie Brambles.
Jackie Brambles? That's not a name I was overly familiar with.
I remember her vaguely. I probably was probably watching Top of the Pops at this point. But yeah, that's what simulcast means. You could experience it stereo. It was also on the radio, wasn't it? Was it on the radio at the same time? Is that what it means?
Yeah, it was at the exact same time as the radio, yeah.
Finally, 31st of August, NICAM stereo sound is introduced on BBC television.
Ooh. NICAM.
Wonder if that's why the Top of the Pops thing was simulcast for the last time. Wonder if that was something to do with it.
Could be, yeah. Near instantaneous companded audio multiplex, Adrian.
What's companded mean?
I don't know. You'd have to have a look. It was originally intended to provide broadcasters with 6 high-quality audio channels within a total bandwidth of 2,048 kilobits per second. The figure was chosen to match the E1 primary multiplex rate, and systems using this rate could make sure of the planned PDH national and international telecommunications network. End of line. Concordantly.
Companded. Ergo,
concordantly.
That's Perhaps the most interesting thing we've ever said on this podcast.
You remember the old TVs was all Nicam for a while. Well, no, it's Nicam.
Nicam stereo, yeah.
Yeah, nobody really knew what the Nicam bit was. They were just like, oh, it's stereo. I remember having a TV that was Nicam stereo, and it just had two like flaps, but you opened up on the side, and that was its like, it looked like little ears on the side, and that was its like speakers. Just like,
Nicam ears.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was
Nicam
like,
ears.
it was the wonder of stereo in your lounge, which didn't matter, did it? Nobody cared.
Nobody cared. No. There was a period, obviously, everyone started a bit of a sort of sonic arms race for a period, wasn't there, where people were getting 5.1 surround sound setups. Like, I got one and everything like that. And then you realise, who cares?
Did you get a 5.1 surround?
Yeah, I had 5.1, so I've still got it. My Sony one of my speakers.
I never owned one, and I never owned anything like that. I had speakers, but
they
never
were good
like
for they were good for games when that came in, and they were good for like if you were watching a film, if you had them set up right. But if you didn't have the right setup in your room, then it was like trying to get the balance right was just a nightmare.
I never wanted that many wires around the walls in my lounge or anywhere like that.
I was running around the edge of the floor.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want any of that. No wires.
Well, you can get wireless 5.1 these days, and
I don't want that. I've got a little mini cinema room, and I still don't have it in there.
Yeah. I had it when I had my big cinema room with the big projector and stuff, and I had 5.1 set up in there. That was nice. It was nice, but after a while, you're like, oh, who cares?
Exactly, mono. You'll have mono, and you'll like it. Whenever I get headphones for my kids, I actually cut one of the ears off because if they can't enjoy mono, then yeah, exactly.
That's really harsh.
Well, I don't want to break a good pair of headphones. I don't want to break a good pair of headphones. But no, of course not the kid, you violent crazy. But I do break their headphones deliberately to make sure they can only listen in mono.
Fair enough. But we're recorded in stereo, so they wouldn't hear it in mono. They'd just hear one side of the sound. They'd be like, oh, where's the guitar gone?
That's all they need to hear.
You're a cruel, cruel man.
I am, but I am an advocate of mono.
You are. It's true. I have to talk to you from one direction only when I'm round at your house.
Exactly.
Oh dear. Anyway, new shows. There were some new shows. Let's move on from this mono talk. New shows. 1st of August, Adventures on Kythera. An Australian children's television series about 5 children who had adventures on the Greek island of Kythera. Kythera? I don't know how you pronounce it.
No idea.
Never heard of it. Never seen it. Maybe some of our Australian patrons could sort of fill us in on that, because I've never heard of it.
Doesn't say what channel that was on. Probably ITV.
Probably. 2nd of August, Packet of 3.
Yep.
This was this some kind of comedy show?
Comedy series, yeah. Broadcast on Channel 4. Starred Frank Skinner, Jenny Eclair and Henry Normal. Set in the fictional Crumpsall Palladium with scenes filmed at Wakefield's Theatre Royal in front of a live theatre audience. For the retitled 2nd series, Normal was replaced by Roger Mann and Kevin Eldon. I don't remember anything about it.
No, that clip that one you've sort of linked to there, that's Steve Coogan at the very beginning, wasn't it?
No idea. I don't know. That's the one I found. It may not even be the same thing.
I don't know. It was very odd. It wasn't very funny, which was the problem. For a comedy show, that's a real letdown. Yeah,
and that's unusual for Frank Skinner because he is a very funny guy.
Yeah, I didn't like it. 9th of August, Dream On. I remember this.
Promised a lot, that. Yeah, it promised a lot, but it wasn't very good.
So this was it's a typical sort of US sitcom, but it's a kid who's grown up with TV in it, and so every time in the future, when present day, whenever it kind of shows a clip of a sort of old TV to sort of illustrate what he's thinking. That's kind of the hook, isn't it?
Yeah, that was exactly it. So, it'd think of something. I mean, it was produced by John Landis, which is, I think, what drew us to it initially.
Yeah.
But it's also it was created by David Crane. Didn't he have something to do with some other famous TV shows, I believe?
David Crane, yeah, I believe so.
He's, I think, quite famous for a few of the sort of more legendary ones.
Let me have a look.
He did The Powers That Be, Friends. Was one of the
Friends,
shows
that's where
he
I
was
recognise the
responsible
name.
for.
That's where
that kind of thing. But it was quite a, it ran for a few seasons, then it's 6 seasons. It was popular in the US, I think. And it did have those little insert clips, but I'm just not sure that the comedy landed that well for me after the first episode, which seemed to have sort of some funny clips. And I think that appealed to our there was a kind of a thing, which was, I don't know, there was this sort of thing appealed to us, I think, this idea of there being little mini video clips. Because there was a couple of TV shows that were doing it. There was a film review show where they inserted little clips of things like that. When they did the movie reviews, it came a bit after that. And I think it was an appeal to our sense of humor a little bit at the time, that we know there was these little funny inserts. Family Guy makes a kind of a habit of doing these little segue clips, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah,
that's way funny, whereas this just wasn't. So I think that was their original plan, is to make these sort of funny, but I don't remember much of it, and that's probably for good reasons, really.
Yeah, no, I don't either. But you may have enjoyed it. Well, I don't really remember much.
You did? Good for you.
Yeah. 31st of August, The House of Elliot.
From the makers of Upstairs, Downstairs. Yeah, I remember it. I never watched it.
This. It's a British television series. It's basically a period drama, isn't it? Period drama.
Yeah.
So it's lots of, I say, Mr. Baxter, how frightfully dashing of you.
Yeah, dressmaking businesses in London, fashion house. Yeah, in 1920s, is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
like the Roaring Twenties. Yeah,
That was not going to appeal to us.
no, it wasn't. And I mean, I don't remember. I never watched an episode of Upstairs, Downstairs, although I'm oddly familiar with the name.
Everyone knows Upstairs, Downstairs. It's just synonymous.
I never watched
Everyone
it, but
just
the House of
knows
Elliot. I mean, very popular, the House of Elliot, but not with me. It wasn't.
No, not with me either. And that's it. That's it. Not much going on in the world of TV. A lot of Mozart, though.
Yeah,
A lot of Mozart and bendy eye, although that's probably more like eyelids being bent around.
Yeah. Strong eyelid, man.
Do apologise to anyone if that sort of turned anyone's stomach, but it is what it is.
Don't you can't watch Britain's Got Talent. That's the case.
Well, I'd recommend that anyway. Don't watch it; it's rubbish.
Yeah.
There you go. Anyway, that's it. That's the new shows. That's the TV. There was not a lot going on. It was the summer. We were all out playing.
Yeah,
doing other
probably.
stuff.
Actually,
well, 1991 we were down the pub and down Gulliver's. That's it. We're going to go take a quick break. We'll come back. We've still got 2 more games to get through. They both begin with the letter M. So
they do.
I guess that's something. We'll see you in a bit. And we're back. Sometimes, some weeks, the games that you put together, there's not a looker among them. And sometimes you get stuff like this. Graham, the first of our M games for this part is, well, I'm sorry you got this one, but it is Multiplayer Soccer Manager. Tell us all about it.
$9.99, 45%, published by D&H Games. And it was re-released by Cult Games. So I'm not sure where it was originally published. I'm feeling it was a Spectrum game, looking at the graphics that are in it, but I don't know for sure. Yes. And I don't care. I wasn't going to find out on purpose. It was coded by R. Thomas and Richard Walker. He did Sabutio, the computer game. So there's football gaming heritage in it.
Yeah.
And good old Cult Games. You remember Cult Games, Adrian, and their fantastic list of products that included British Super League, Championship Golf, First Past the Post, The Footballer, International Manager, League Football, The National, Professional Footballer, On the Bench, Rugby Coach, Scottish League Football, Snooker Management, the most stupid game of all time, Soccer 7.
Why have we not seen
Star.
Snooker Manager? That sounds ace.
That comes out in 1990. It's probably going to be in one of the guns we've got at some point. And who can, of course, forget your favourite, Adrian? Striker.
Oh, Striker, the loneliness of the solitary goalkeeper.
Yeah, and remember the Boxing Manager? Do you remember that? The Boxer. They also brought us that wonderful thing. And something called Banger Racer. I'm not sure I want to know what that is.
Sausages going around a track.
Racing sausages. You're not enjoying his racing sausage at all. All right. So this is from D&H Games, Masters of Strategy. Okay, this is the blurb. A 1-4 player management game where it is not only your job to manage your team against 60 to 63 computer-managed teams. That seems an odd number to say it that way, but okay. In the 60s, 60 to 63. Okay.
I guess it's if you're playing 1-4 players, isn't it?
Yeah, but up to 3 other non-computer players as well. Each of the players can be in any of the 4 divisions. Bid against your fellow players for the best transfers. Go for the league and cup titles using your managerial skill and judgment to make all the right decisions. Note, when a player is injured, you must take him out of training. And there's a list of keyboard controls. And the features, Adrian, are thus. Up to 4 players, 4 divisions, 16-player squad, over 850 players. Make your mind up about how many players you've got. Your fixtures, your results, season tickets, view any team, LMTG counter, 64 teams. Okay, we've already been through that. Formations, buy players, sell players, scouts, coaches, physios, injuries, retirements, grants, fines, promotions, skill ratings, television matches, icon-controlled entry. Sounds painful again. training, named scorers, 30-week season, FA Cup, League Cup, sponsors, managers, honours, ground capacity, ground safety, save game, load game, relegation, weekly violence, wages and sackings.
Bring in the weekly violence.
Bring me that weekly violence. Oh, the shivers this game sends down my spine and the luxury of it all. All right. It's an attempt here from Cult Games to up the ante on their other games of this type. Is it successful? Who knows? Though there are admittedly higher production values here with multicolored tables of information, high-res icons and joystick control, ultimately this game is a series of information panels and tables of data. You can play up to 4 players, which I guess adds a layer of interest if you have 3 mates that also want to look at multicolored panels and information. In all fairness, I can see that if you were into this kind of thing, maybe that would have appeal. You can, of course, be the manager, add names and other details. You can improve your ground, train players, check out fixtures and stats of all types, all in glorious, multicolored table glory. Even the matches, when you choose to play the game by the icons, are only shown via results table. No sounds, nothing like that, just stats.
It's pure, unadulterated stats.
The game starts officially with the most complicated select the way you want to control things of all time, I think. So you've got 1 for continue randomly, 2 for keyboard, 3 for joystick, and 4 for redo keys. Okay, it just seems a bit confusing. Just joystick, I think. So choose that.
Yep.
Then you get to name your player. There's no delete or backspace that you can operate, so you better spell it right first time, otherwise you're going to end up with the Clogo, like I did. And I ended up managing Carlisle United, poor devils. So you'll go from that. It'll tell you, so at the top it says the name of the stat page you're on. Underneath that, multicolored fonts. It is all font-based, but it is just multicolored layers of text, really, telling you a few things. And at the bottom, normally there's a little bit of an operational layer of text, which will tell you what week you're in and stuff like that. When you do get to the main control panel page, if you like, it's actually a icon screen, of which there are, I want to say, 9, 10, 11 icons, something like that. Who all do different things. So one will show your squad. One allows you to sort of kickstart a game off. You can see the league tables. You can see players available for transfer. You can join in the various cups, see the fixtures lists. You can check your banking. You can check your ground and that kind of stuff. Those are the icons to do that. All of those icons just lead to more tables of multicolored text at any opportunity.
Yep.
Now, it is quite decorative. It is quite nicely styled. There's a lot of teams you can play in here. There's a lot of divisions and there's a lot of stuff going at that. And you can, of course, save and load your game into this and all of the rest of it. So all of the usual things you would and should be able to do in a game like this, you can do with the novelty of having a diving board of icons, which aren't terrible icons as icons go. They kind of do what they say. They're okay. They look very Spectrum-esque to me, but that's what they are. So I tried to misadventure and manage. You can play 4-player. I didn't. Obviously, I played 1, which is a bit lame, but I did. And then I got into trying to play the game. Decided I was going to play a game, expecting to see at least some kind of match highlights, but not at all. It just gave me the kind of Division 1 scores in a list and told me that I'd lost the first game that I played, which is fair enough. But you may be pleased to know that in the same Division 1 matches, Manchester United beat... Oh, no, you won't be pleased. Manchester United beat Liverpool. I was thinking it was the other way around for a second, but okay. So it's got all those teams in it. So well, it isn't made up teams. They are teams of the time, I guess. That's fair to say. Okay.
Yep.
So like I said, if you've got 4 people that are into this kind of thing, maybe it'll appeal. Again, you can add all your own details and manage your name and stuff like that. You can improve your grounds. Like I said, do all of the stuff via the icons. I was disappointed that there was no game played, but what can you do? It's just the way, that's the nature of these kind of games. It's a stats lover type game, this one. If you love your stats and your tables of data, you're going to get to see a lot of that. So I don't know. I would have could there have been a couple of images in it to just liven it up a bit? Yes.
Could have been something.
I think it's a misfire to have a soccer game that has no soccer in it of any discernible nature visually. Not even the sort of visual components of a football image or anything like that. It is just all stats. But maybe that's what these games are. I suppose my question becomes: is this a good one of those? I don't feel best positioned to answer that, as I loathe all of these crappy games with every fibre of my being. But I do know that it's up against stiff competition with other football manager games out there. The fact that they are still making those tells me that there's a keen audience for this, and that's good. If you like it, that's fine. I'm not that audience, and I never will be. So what of this then? Well, it's a colourful and icon-driven, and I suppose those are steps in the right direction for a game of this type. It's also void of any actual football, which I think is probably common in these, isn't it? I don't think they all showed the games. They just sort of showed the text So is it a good manager game then? Well, I managed a team to lose repeatedly, but I did increase the safety of my ground after being awarded a grant. So that's good. And my goalkeeper got injured in the third game, and I replaced him with what I thought was a goalkeeper. Maybe it wasn't. I believe substituted is the correct term. Anyway, in the trundle-like journey of Carlisle United, I don't think I'm going to go down in the annals of history as the best and most effective manager they ever had. I've no idea if we were doing well, if all the details in the stats meant anything, and I don't doubt that they probably would have to somebody, but by the time I got to that point, I was actually losing my will to live. I'm not the person to ask about this. Did I manage a football team? Maybe. I don't really know. Did I know through the people that would play this at the same time? I might have, but we never would have. It's not for me. It never will be this. And there's lots of reasons that I don't like that. Principally, too many to list. But what I will do for you, Adrian, is put all of my lists of reasons into a multicolored table so that you can be sure to fully digest them in the way that you'd like. These games are not for me. I couldn't tell you if this was a particularly good one of these. It seemed to have a lot of more depth to it than the other cult games I've had. Maybe that's a good thing. And I was able to get into it a lot easier with the joystick controls. I'll give it that. But I didn't know what I was doing, and I had no intention of finding out. So if you like manager games, give it a go, see what you think. What did you think of it, Adrian?
No, don't give it a go. It technically works, this, but it's so dull. It's so boring. It's got no life to this at all.
Yeah.
It's the quietest 10, 15, 20 minutes I had today. Just sat there trying to play this. There's not even a noise of clicking through icons or anything. There's not a single noise in it.
Very strange.
Oh, it's really weird. And also, for this kind of thing, Brian Clough's Football Fortunes exists on the machine. Go play that. True. Everyone would play that instead because that was really good with the board and everything and the randomness, and it was way better. We used to play that quite a lot because as a multiplayer game, it's far better than this. And as a single player game, go play Tracksuit Manager, or even Football Manager. For God's sake, it reeks of Spectrum. Reeks of it. Yeah. It reeks it with the style and colours chosen for the icons. In fact, it's the same colours that are on the Spectrum version. That cyan, white, and yellow combination. I never particularly like it. It's never good. Playing in single player is a real exercise in tedium. Like I said, no sounds, no match highlights, Graham. No match highlights. Not a single, not a thing. Just menu after menu after menu. It's like being at the worst restaurant. It gets really boring really quickly. There's nothing here to make being a football manager seem interesting or exciting. That, when I watch football, and I watch it a fair bit, the managers on the side of the pitch, they're all, gesticulating, and there's none of that here. It's just dull, boring. If you had forced this on your mates to play, then you would have no mates very quickly. But if you had for that afternoon, the bidding against each other and playing each other could be interesting, I guess. But the thing is, right, games being nothing more than just the results, all that fun is sucked away in an instant. Because we used to play, I used to play Premier Manager with my mate Sean back at university on the Amiga. That was a multiplayer Football Manager game, but the games were sort of highlighted. And when we were playing each other, it was really sort of tense, and like we're putting teams up against each other and trying to out-fox each other with tactics. It worked. Here, you can't do any of that. Because, like you said, it basically says, it makes me laugh because play a game and he goes, "Are you sure?" Like,
yeah, that was weird, wasn't it?
What's the point of the game? If he's asking me if I'm sure I want to play a football match, it's like, yeah, that's my job. I'm a football manager.
I think those questions are put in there for me specifically. To be fair, I'm not sure.
But it's like, yes, go play the game. And then I was expecting, the first time it went through, because even in those crappy cult games, we've seen, matches made up of, pitches made up of lines and things, and that rugby one was stupid, but at least the cricket one was crap. But at least there was something, you could see the game. The game was being played in front of you for a little bit, and you could try and affect it and stuff like that. Here, it just goes, all right, Division 1, here's the results. Division 2, Division 3. I got lumped with Aldershot, and we drew our first 2 games 0-0. I was done. I was like, this is the most boring thing ever. I've not even managed to score a goal, and no one scored a goal against me. I'm playing the most boring game with the boring football results. It's just the most boring thing I've ever done. That's just rubbish. So you can't, and even because when you're playing those matches, you need to have tactics, bringing subs on, changing things up if it's not going right, if you're losing, but you don't get any of that. It's just like, here's the result. Oh, okay. Boring, tedious nonsense. I will say that the icons are easy to navigate, though, with the joystick.
Yeah. So joystick control, good.
Yeah, it reminded me of Footballer of the Year.
Yeah, I think that's where they got the idea.
Yeah, and nothing else, though. Nothing else of this is worthy of comment. It's rubbish. It's boring. It's one of the most boring things I've ever had to experience on this podcast. Tedium.
It was pretty dull. It was very dull.
Christ on a bike. You can imagine. Oh, come on, guys. We're going to play some multiplayer Soccer Manager. I'm not your friend anymore.
Yeah, I didn't see an audience for it myself, but I didn't. And you were into football, but you would never have wanted to play that.
No, Brian Clough was way better. Jesus Christ. Oh, just 10 quid for it as well. £10.
No.
£10 to play this Lose Your Mate simulator.
That's the perfect. It's exactly what it would have been as well. Yeah, well said. Well said.
Rubbish. Just rubbish. Hated it. Just go away. Never darken my door again.
Oh, dear.
Anyway, let's move along. We still have another game left this week. Another M game. And that game is Millennium Warriors. Millennium Warriors. Never heard of this. But, okay, this is £11.50. 68% it got. Okay. Now, technically, when I first started writing this, I'd not noticed a bit on the title screen. So this is another late in the day release from First Star. Remember First Star, don't we? Boulder Dash and stuff. And they did that one the other week. The security, was it Security Alert?
They did, yeah. That's right.
Yeah. When we saw that as well. And this is technically, I guess over here in the UK, this is probably their final release on the C64. I say technically, though, because weirdly, there was a game called Panic Button, which was a lost First Star game that got released in 2005, coming from 1984 or something.
Okay.
So technically, but that was made before this. But this was, I think, this was actually made in 1989, according to the title screen, but it got released over here in 1991. Anyway, this is Millennium Warriors, and it only came out on the C64. No other versions. It's a system exclusive, Graham. System exclusive. This is something you'd buy the C64 for £11.50. Is it a system seller? Well, let's find out. Published by First Star. Code, visuals, and music are all by Offer Alon. I don't know. It's got on Lemon. Offer Alon. OFER. His first name. Second name Alon. ALON.
Okay, well, that's a good name. Interesting.
Did all the bits.
Okay.
And it was the only game on the C64 that they've got listed that I could find. This seems to be a bit of a lost game, this. There are no long plays on YouTube, which is always a weird one. Maybe one for our patron ALH2 Retro to rectify shouldn't take them too long. There's no comments on this game on Lemon, which is always weird. It's got a rating. Weird. It's got a rating, but it's only six votes.
Okay.
So it's like, this just seems to have gone completely under the radar. I couldn't find the instructions either. I found one some weird, one website that had the instructions, but that was just the, when I looked at Moby Games, it's just the opening text from there. So I couldn't find anything on this at all. But it is pretty easy to work out. Most of the story is actually contained in the game itself. The back of the box was on Moby Games, so that's where I got this from. This is the story. This is what Millennium Warrior is all about. Prince Kronos is the firstborn son of the great galactic emperor Iridon I.
Of course he is.
Or it might be Iridon the First, I don't know. By ancient Iridani law, the prince must undergo an extraordinary test of skill, strength, and daring in order to be chosen as Prince of the Southern Nebula and uncontested heir to the galactic throne. In the test of arms, the prince is transported to the planet Earth by the Time Lords of the Empire and hurled back through time to the caveman, in capitals, era, where he must defeat the first of the supreme champions of each time period. Victory in each era will transport him forward to the next of the time epochs, where he must again succeed against overwhelming odds. That's in italics, that bit. At first, reading this, it gave me horrible flashbacks to that god-awful dog egg from CRL, Time Warrior. If you remember that. I was thinking, we're in there again. But thankfully, it's a world apart from that monstrosity, I have to say. So it's a weird one, this game. It's got an interesting loading screen. It's got characters from various time periods stood behind the logo. So from left to right, we have a knight, and just an Arab man, I guess, to say what it is. A cowboy. There's a guy in a green cloak in the centre. And to his right, a spaceman, a pirate, and a caveman. And I have to say, this reminded me of an alternative Village People. That might just be me, though. I think it's the presence of the cowboy and his moustache. Because the cowboy's not in the game. I'm not sure why he's turned up for this photo shoot.
He just does. That's what he does.
Yeah, maybe just heard the casting call and turned up on the day, and no one had the heart to tell him he was never going to be in the game. I don't know. Maybe he's turned up. We need a seventh character. This doesn't look right with just six. We need a seventh. Get the cowboy in. Hello.
You'd be surprised how often he hears that.
Hello, I'm Cowboy Dan.
Did somebody call for a cowboy?
Anyway,
are you listening to me? Get out.
But see what you think. Have a look at the title screen and just think Village People. Anyway, before the game loads, we get a series of screens telling us the same story as above. There's some suitably twee medieval style music before the title screen appears. It's a bit grey, but there's some options. And we can use the F keys to select the level we want to play. At first, though, I'll come to why we can't choose that at the moment, but we can later. You can have the difficulty level from 1, 2, or 3. It's not clear whether 1 is hard or easy. It just starts you on 2. So
useful. So
is 1 hard? I don't know. I think 1 was easy. I don't know. You can either play 1 player, 2 player, or you can watch a demo.
Okay.
And that's it. So that's it. And then you select those with the F keys, as I said. At the start of the game, the levels are listed. So all that's open to you, though, is the caveman level, because you need to beat each one to open the next one up. And you can start from them on your next time through if you want. So having chosen your difficulty and number of players, F7 starts the game. Each section of this is a separate load, but as it loads, but before then, we get a thrilling visual of your craft hurtling through time, I think, to some more twee music. It's like some circles coming out and there's a spaceship in the middle sort of floating around a bit. Then the loading happens. As it loads there, we get some text to give us some context to what is coming up. First up, we're in the caveman stage and it tells us this. Time transport completed. You arrive in Earth's caveman era in the jaws of the fabled cave fortress of Lumera. The mountains of Grog are silent witnesses as you hold the axe named Strin. You need to master this brutal weapon faster than seems possible and defeat Cracks. There you go. Tells what it tells us. Loading for each section is quite slow. And so the game itself revolves itself around 2 styles of play. There's a standard side-on beat-em-up with weapons, kind of like Night Games was the sort of thing that I thought of. Barbarian, but it's smaller than Barbarian, so it's more like Night Games. And there's a side-on versus blaster-type game where you can fly around the screen and shoot at your opponent, like the end level in Night Games 2, if you remember that one. So, in fact, this whole game reminded me of a mashup of the fighting from Night Games married to the last level of Night Games 2. It's like someone really liked the Night Games games. And then put them 2 together. And to be fair, I think we said that the last section of Night Games 2 was the only decent one. But I can't remember at the time. The game itself consists of 5 levels. The first, second, and fourth are the sort of standard side-on beat-em-up combat screens, whilst the third and fifth are the floaty flying around the screen combat. So, caveman level first. When it boots up, you start on the right of the screen, which is odd. I always find fighting from the right of the screen odd. That's just something about, you're on the left. But anyway, and the screen is split. The game, it takes up most of the top of it. The UI is at the bottom. This never changes from scene to scene. So this is what it looks like. The UI at the bottom shows 3 bars for each fighter. These are energy, health, and weapon. Your energy will go down as you move about or swing your weapon. So think of that as like a modern stamina bar, I guess. Standing still though and doing nothing, we'll see it go back up. So you can, if you have to sort of manage your stamina because you can't swing if you've got no energy left. Your health will deplete as you take hits from your opponent, and your weapon will go. Your weapon bar will go down every time you hit your opponent. So every time you land a blow, your weapon takes, degrades. Controls are mostly the same across all 3 fighting sections, with some little tweaks between each one. So left and right moves you in the direction. To turn round, you must press fire and then, move it the opposite direction. So if you're facing left, you want to face right, move it to the right and press fire button. That turns you round. To attack, you press fire and use the direction towards your opponent. And the diagonals. You only got 3 attacks. So up diagonal towards them and down diagonal. And that's how you sort of attack. You only got 3. If you hold the back diagonals then this is your block. So if you hold the back diagonal, back up diagonal and the fire button, that blocks high. The down diagonal blocks low. Okay, and that's it.
Okay.
You can press up to jump in the second scene. So in the second scene, not this one, you can jump. Cavemen can't jump. It's like white men can't jump. It's the prequel. It's the prequel to that. So yes, you can't jump in the caveman scene. You can also crouch and then crouch walk, which is kind of weird. But you need to do this if you want to walk past your opponent, because only crouch walking allows you to walk past your opponent. If you're stood up and you try to walk past them, you'll just sort of walk into them. So you need to crouch walk quite a lot if you want to get around the back of them. But there you go. And that's kind of it. If your weapon bar reaches 0, then it breaks and flies off the screen. So you're without a weapon for a small bite. You have to wait for a short period of time for another weapon to appear and go grab this to continue fighting. It's kind of like Breath of the Wild's weapon degradation system 26 years earlier, in a sense, because it's like the more you hit something, the more it shatters and then it breaks. Like, I've not seen this in a game before much, I don't think. But I'm not sure it's a good thing, but it's here anyway. Other objects appear on the screen. They are level dependent, but on the first level, there's like a dinosaur that appears, and then some kind of I think some kind of bot. I'm not sure, something else. I couldn't tell what it was. If you hit them, then if you get to them and hit them first, then they restore your energy or your health, depending on what the item is. I think the dinosaur restores your health. And the other thing restores your energy, so you can get them back as well. So that's essentially what you've got to do. Also, at the bottom of the screen, there's some hearts. These are your lives. You have 3 attempts to beat your opponent and move on to the next scene, and that's it. So if you beat the caveman cracks, it's basically one-on-one fighting. You walk around, you swing your fighting, you block. It's fighting game. If you beat the caveman cracks, you get a nice little celebratory tune. Your caveman beats his chest in victory, and the next scene loads in. This sees us in medieval times, so we are now a knight and must defeat the champion Darwayne of Castle Morlock. Aside from the change of visuals, there's like a castle in the background now. We're sort of fighting on this on a kind of what they call drawbridge outside a castle. You now have the ability to jump, so you can jump forward, jump up, and jump back as well. It's exactly the same though, except you've now got a sword and shield. But pretty much all the controls, all the UI, everything's exactly the same. But the goal here is to beat the champion and move on to the next scene. So there's not much to say. It's just more fighting. Winning here sees our noble hero remove his shield and kneel before the vanquished foe, which is quite nice. More loading ensues after this, and we are taken above the city of Baccarat. And we must face Khalid. So this is like the Arab guy from the opening screen, and here we are on a flying carpet, and we have to throw fireballs at each other. We can throw them straight on or downwards. If you throw them downwards, they bounce off the bottom of the screen and can sort of hit upwards. So you kind of need to avoid them, and they're doing the same to you. You can float around all over the screen. The objective is the same. Obviously, just defeat Khalid, get his health down below 0. Controls are mostly the same, left and right, but here we can move up and down as well. You're on a flying carpet, so you can fly around all over the place. We can also fly off the left or right side of the screen and wrap around to the other. So you appear, if you go to the right, you appear back on the left, which is quite interesting, a bit weird. And essentially, you're just trying to sort of lob fireballs at each other. Your fireball will run out though, and sometimes you have to go recollect it in the middle of the screen. So you have to kind of catch it sometimes. It's a bit odd. And you can block them as well. So if they fire them at you and you're about to hit, you can do your block and you can hit it back at each other, deflect it back at the opponent, which is quite a nice touch. If you beat Khalid, this sees him sucked into a genie's lamp, and we do some bows on our magic carpet. And the next scene loads in. This is the pirate stage where we face off against Drask the Deadly on the ship the Black Serpent. We were using cutlasses at this point, and we have at them. Here we can't jump. The jump is taken away, but what there's a plank above us. It's seen side on, but there's a plank, and we can climb up on the plank. So the fight here takes place across 2 levels, meaning you can avoid the other player by climbing up the plank and then somersaulting down off it onto the deck of the ship, which is quite interesting. So it gives it a bit of different depth and different level here. If you win this, it sees us take a glug of rum and toast our fallen opponent, which is quite interesting. Before we head into present day, I'm talking present day into the story, we're well into the future here, or we're back in wherever, and we're floating around the screen in spacesuits trying to beat the galactic champion Omega with our space beams. We shoot them, press left and shoot and things like that. It's exactly the same as the magic carpet one, just with different graphics. But if we blast them and we knock them out, it sees them disintegrated. We raise our arms in triumph, and then we have the ending. where we see ourselves, we're very burly with a yellow cape. We walk across some clouds to be crowned, I presume by our dad, maybe, I don't know, for the galactic throne. And that's that. We're back to the title screen. And that's kind of it. 5 levels, 5 screens, 5 fights. Just fight you all the way through them, get crowned, back to the beginning. Now, there is a fair bit to like here in this game. Quite often we talk of context for what we're doing. We played Wrath of the Demon the other week, and it was contextless. It was just a load of scenes which didn't tie together in any way, shape, or form. This does do that. This game gives us context. It provides little text snippets to set up the next scene. I read that one about cracks. Each level has that kind of introductory text to tell us who we're fighting, where we are, what we're doing. There's also a really nice touch in that each one we go to, it changes the font for each page of text to be appropriate for the time zone. So it has a medieval font, a sort of Arabic font, a kind of a sort of pirate style font, and then a space sort of sci-fi style font. That's really nice, a really great touch. The presentation on this is really good. Controls are simple, they're easy to get the hang of. Different backgrounds for the fights. They're not the best we've ever seen, but remember this came out in 99. They do have a certain charm to them. So we've got some mountains and stuff in the background for the caveman. There's a castle and drawbridge in that. The pirate ship has like a sort of a ship in the background, sort of firing cannons and stuff. The Baccarat city is kind of laid out below you. The space one is okay, but it's got some like a spaceship and a space station in the background. They're all right. They're not terrible. They're fine. The sprites for each section, they're fairly well drawn and animated. Not the best we've seen, but they're okay. They do their job, and they're all different as well. Every level is different, and I guess that's why there's loading, because you're loading at different sprite banks and stuff. There are even some sample sounds for some sections. The caveman part, especially when you're hitting and thwacking each other, it's like, which is all right. This is quite interesting. It's nice to see a good ending too. You're walking across, you get crowned. It's good. Nice graphics on that bit. I thought it was all right. As I said, though, it's taken some time to land over in the UK. It's got copyright 1989 on the title screen. So given this is a couple of years old, I cut it a little bit more slack on the visual front. It's not top of the range even for 1989, and for 1991, obviously, we've seen loads of interesting things. But back then, it's not too bad. It's not to say they're bad. So some of the animations, like I said, like climbing onto the plank and then somersaulting down from it in the pirate level, are really good. There's some nice little touches for this, and those and the little bespoke victory animations you do adds to the whole thing. So there's been some thought and care put into this. It's a well considered, thought out game. The main problem is the game. The fighting's not much fun. That's the real issue here. With only 3 attacking moves, combat is limited, and it goes on forever. Forever. There are always objects spawning, allowing you to get health and energy back, both you and your opponent, whether that's 2-player or single player. And the CPU will leg it for them, and it will get them. So you can take them down a bit, and then they'll get full health. And you're like, oh, God's sake. When your weapons breaks, there's a new one. You're having to wait for one to appear. I didn't enjoy that, so that got a bit annoying. So these fights just go on and on and on. It's very hard to hit your opponent as well, even on the weakest difficulty level. I tried all 3, as they're constantly crouching and running around, making them quite hard to hit. You're kind of doing this low hit, and it's not always, the controls don't always work. Sometimes I was just crouching and trying to hit them low, and it just wasn't quite responsive enough. As for the flying sections, they don't feel good either. Floaty controls make it hard to aim properly, and again, loads of pickups, meaning health and energy are constantly topped up, go on for ages. Just like, oh God, this fights take forever. This may all work better in 2-player, I guess, where it might be a bit of fun, but there's not much strategy to the fighting or choice of attacking moves, so it all feels very limited. You're on one plane, you can't do back moves, so you're trying to turn around. Turning around is slow. If you compare this with Best in Class that we played prior to 1989, Exploding Fist, IK Plus, or something like Barbarian, or even Night Games, for the use of weapons, this pales in comparison, and that's a real shame. What I will say is, for one person to make all this is impressive, and I think that should be lauded. They put a lot of effort into this. There's a lot of stuff around the edges. I like the presentation of this, and the care that's been given to it. I just wish the actual game part of the game had been better. It's not terrible, because it all works, and there were no bugs that I encountered. It's just that it's not very... Have I dropped out? What's going on?
No, where have you gone?
Yeah, okay.
It's recording now.
Okay. I'll go from the bit where I say all better in two-player, or I'll compare this with Best in Class. If you compare this with Best in Class stuff like Exploding Fist, IK Plus, or Barbarian, and the aforementioned Night Games for the use of weapons, it just pales in comparison, which is a shame. What I say is, for one person to make all this is impressive. And then that should be lauded. They've done everything, and that's quite good. I like the presentation of this and the care that's been given to it. I just wish the actual game part of the game had been better. It's not that it's terrible, because it all works. There were no bugs that I encountered, and there's lots to like, but it's just not very entertaining. The fights go on too long, and there's 3 moves. You need more. And after a while, no amount of story and context can just get around the fact that the game bit is just a bit dull and goes on too long. So, yeah, I wanted to like this because I was quite enjoying bits of it, but then when playing it is a frustrating act. So that's kind of where I came on this. A bit of a shame. What did you think?
Yeah, the same. I thought it had the makings of something quite interesting. I quite like the animation on the little characters, and the setting was nice. But it just, when it came down to the combat, I think if I'm going to go for a game of this type, I'm going to play Night Games or Night Games 2, where I'm just going to slug it out with a competitor. And
yeah,
they were quite nice characters. The little cavemen dudes had me laughing. I thought it's just, I don't know. It's just not quite good as it kind of could have been. It's not that much fun to play. It's a bit basic for this kind of thing, and weirdly late in the day as well for it. I think maybe this was released a long time ago, and I don't know. It just felt another one that felt weirdly out of place. But there could be fun to be had in it. But is this really going to top the fun you're going to get still from IK Plus, which is at this point, £9 cheaper than that?
Yeah.
I don't think it is. So
yeah, or Barbarian. Barbarian's the ultimate winner in this weapon-based combat stuff, isn't it? Really,
yeah, and that's way cheaper than this. So just there's plenty of other games that are better than this and a little bit more fun to play and not quite as grunty, because it did make me laugh. The sampled sound and stuff was quite a nice touch, it has to be said. But
yeah,
and the overhead hammer bash was quite funny. It's comedic, but it just wasn't consistent, and the moves were too limited. And in the end, there's only so much mileage in that. So I enjoyed what I played, but I was kind of glad it was over with, and I didn't play it for that long. So there you go.
Yeah, and it doesn't really change from, like I said, there's some attempts to sort of change it. You can jump, as I said, in the night bit, and you can climb up on the plank and stuff in the pirate bit, but they don't really add that much to it in the grand scheme of things. It's just a little bit too little. Needs more combat moves.
Yep.
Yeah, but there you go. That was Millennium Warriors. Or the alternative village people, if you want. But it's not bad. And it is, like I said, some very nice touches, but not much of a game. And that's it. That's it for this week. 4 games of varying quality. I think the best 2 were in the first part. I think Logical is probably the best. I mean, R.B.I. is good if you like baseball, but those are the two to look at probably for this week. But there you go. Wow, what a week! There you go. Sometimes it just falls like that, doesn't it? You get a mediocrity and one boringness. Don't know what else to say, really. You got anything you want to say on that, like Graham?
No. Logical is probably the best of the bunch, really, and that's not saying much. I didn't really like any of them, so.
You had a fun week.
Yeah. It's been a busy week, and at least Logical was a puzzle game that you could sort of see the mileage in it, and you could at least come at it from different ways if you wanted. But baseball, and the baseball was okay, but it was just is bettered by hardball, so it's just late to that party. But the soccer game was a waste of space, and Millennium Warriors I'm not even sure really what that audience was for that. But
No, I'm not either. And there we go. Like I said, I've said where you can find us. We're obviously on all the social media, so if you want to come chat or leave us a review and things like that, that's good. You can do that as well. We'll be back next week, obviously. We round up the final lot of games. The jury's still out on whether we're going to cover Keys to Maramon. I need to have a look at that.
We are undecided.
But we will certainly have F1 GP circuits, Switchblade, Yahinga Khan's World Championship Squash, I think, and another football game, Man United Europe. So we'll definitely have those for whether we have Keys to Maramon or not. We don't know. we'll have a look. I'll have a look at it and go, I'm not covering this. Or, because I don't know what it is, but we'll have a look. So on that note, I think we're going to go and leave you with the rest of your week, which I hope is a good one. So, as ever, I have been Adrian Mills.
And I have been Graham Radingo Raddings.
Radingo?
Yes, I've decided.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Not really.
Do I need to change my intro?
No, you need to change your name to AD Radingo. No, not really. We're all...
With a Radingo crew. Okay. And you have been listening to Zap to the Past. We are not the village people. We will see you again,
Or
though.
are we? Cowboy! Did somebody call for a cowboy? No! Oh, one day you'll need me and I won't be there.
I'm here anyway.
Let's go! And we always do that song. Of course, they were famous for that. In the Navy. You know, that one as well, didn't they?
Yeah, but that Go West has got that great intro. It's got
that's true.
Yeah.
And what's the other one as well?
Can't Stop the Music was good
you
as well.
Can't stop the music. Turns out you can actually do that.
Yeah, bugger off, cowboy.
And then what's the other big hit they had? The final one. There's YMCA. There's another one.
Go West.
There's, not Go West. Although that is another big one. Oh, it's Macho Man. That one, wasn't it? That's the one you. Well. That's the one you do karaoke to regularly, even when nobody wants it.
In my own home.
I wanna be a macho man.
I do. I've got the cowboy chaps out and everything.
To be fair, Gary, podcast friend Gary, he wakes up to that. It's his alarm on his phone.
It's how it is. It's his.
When he puts on his shorts ready for his day of cherry picking.
Yeah, take that as you will. Take that as you will. Look, we said goodbye ages ago. Let us go.
We did. Macho man.
We'll see you again next week. Macho man. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zap to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zap to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zaptothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zaptothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zap to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zap to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zap to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.